On the news at 5:30 this evening, concerns for frontline staff as calls grow for greater access to higher grade PPE to protect against the UK strain of COVID.
Because we cannot have the situation where nurses and midwives are looking for the masks and managers are refusing to provide them. That must end today.
Concerns over the rollout of COVID vaccinations as it emerged that administration staff had received the jab at a recent mass vaccination event. Minding your mental health during the pandemic, new online supports launched.
The more lockdowns we have, the greater the impact of those feelings. It's more difficult for people to stay optimistic.
A teenage boy appears in court charged in connection with an attempted robbery and stabbing of a woman in Dublin. And in sport, holders Arsenal are knocked out of the FA Cup. There are concerns for frontline health staff as calls grow for higher grade PPE to be made more readily available to protect against the COVID variant first identified in the UK. Well, Zara King is at the Department of Health for us this evening with more on this. And Zara, we are learning more and more about this new COVID variant.
Yes, good evening, Anne. So it's estimated that up to 65% of the new confirmed cases that we're seeing in Ireland now are linked to that new UK variant. And while there's still a lot to be learned about it, we are expecting and experiencing the fact that this appears to be a more transmissible strain of the virus. So what we're hearing tonight from the Irish Nurses and Midwives organisation is that they're concerned about their frontline workers, particularly those who have yet to receive the COVID vaccine. And they're talking about the working conditions they're in and saying that they need further protections. And they talk about this FFP2 mask. So effectively this is a mask that is of a higher grade than what we would see as a normal surgical mask. Many of us will actually own those normal surgical masks, but this is a much higher grade, stronger, higher protection piece of equipment. So the INMO saying that their workers really need to get quick and ready access to this particular type of mask, and they say it has been a challenge to date.
The INMO is gravely concerned that the spread of COVID-19 is now out of control. We have 2,500 healthcare workers getting infected every week. In addition to that, the HSE has admitted today that first dose vaccines will not be available to frontline healthcare workers until the middle of February. That is unacceptable. So they must increase the protections available to staff, and that means providing all frontline healthcare workers with FFP2 standard masks as a minimum. The Minister, Paul Reid, must issue that instruction to all managers, because we cannot have the situation where nurses and midwives are looking for the masks and managers are refusing to provide them. That must end today.
Well, and this evening the HSE says they've already issued that instruction to management across the country. In fact, they say they issued that instruction earlier this week. The Chief Executive, Paul Reid, and Dr. Colm Henry both saying that that instruction was given out earlier this week, that they were said that the criteria in terms of accessing those FFP2 masks had changed, that in fact those masks should be made available to frontline workers who feel that they need them in that environment, and that the discretion is down to local hospitals in terms of distributing that PPE. So they are very much saying in the HSE tonight that there should be no issue with this, that in fact frontline nurses and doctors should be able to access those masks as they need them. Now, speaking of the UK strain, Professor Aoife McLysa has been speaking this afternoon from Trinity College and saying that, you know, really we shouldn't be waiting to learn more about this strain. We should be acting now to protect ourselves immediately.
There is some early suggestion that it might also have worse outcomes for those people who are infected. That is not definitive yet, but I don't think we should wait until we know that it's more dangerous before we act. I think we have to get ahead of the virus. We've been behind this whole thing for too long. So quarantine is a well-known, long-established method, and it works. It keeps the virus under control. So we have to get it down, keep it out. That's the mantra we ought to be following.
Well, finally, and this evening, the HSE is saying that by tomorrow they'll have completed 140,000 vaccinations. But as we know, there is an issue with supply in terms of Pfizer-BioNTech, and that is going to have an impact over the coming weeks. So while the HSE will continue to give out second round doses to those who got their first vaccine, we know that the first round doses clearly won't be able to be given out if we don't actually have the vaccine in the country. We expect that those first rounds will be able to resume again by the second week of February.
Sarah, thank you for that. Meanwhile, frontline workers say they are frustrated with the rollout of COVID vaccinations. As it emerged, administration staff had received the jab at a recent mass vaccination event. Hannah Murphy has the story.
There's fresh frustration for healthcare workers as they learn more COVID-19 vaccines have been administered to people who aren't frontline staff. Around 36 external admin staff were working across mass vaccination centres in Laois, Dublin and Galway last Saturday, a number of whom were given a first Moderna dose at the end of the day. It's angered others on the priority list.
They should be rolled out to the frontline workers, people who are on the streets, people who are going into the homes, people who are going to unregulated areas to get the job done. These are the most vulnerable workers that you have.
In a statement, the HSE says it learned that a number of staff other than frontline healthcare workers were vaccinated. It says this happened because the vaccination centres were trying to reach as many healthcare workers as possible quickly. The HSE acknowledges the disappointment and frustration this has caused for frontline healthcare workers who've not yet received the vaccine. The HSE is committed to improving the targeting of the limited supplies of vaccine. When it emerged leftover vaccines were given to non-frontline workers at the Coombe and Rotunda maternity hospitals earlier this month, the HSE issued new guidance on January 12th. It said vaccine drives should have a list of frontline healthcare workers on standby. These admin staff received their doses 4 days after this advice was issued. The Health Minister is being urged to make the rollout more transparent.
Publish the lists of how many healthcare workers are being vaccinated and in what subsets they're being vaccinated. If we had that transparency, we'd be able to hold the HSE to account on how it's being rolled out. But ultimately, the Minister is responsible here, and there can be no buck passing on something as important as the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine.
In a statement, the Health Minister says the government's been clear about who should get vaccines ever since the priority list was agreed in December. It says the programme is the responsibility of the HSE and they've issued clear guidelines on the administration. Hannah Murphy, Virgin Media News.
The INTO says it's critical that the government adhere to public health advice when making any decisions to reopen schools. Well, the union was responding to comments by the Taoiseach Micheál Martin earlier today that a full return to schools will not happen before St Patrick's Day. Priority will be given to the return of students with special educational needs who were due to return to classrooms earlier this week.
I imagine many of our members, teachers across the country, will be reacting with a certain degree of anxiety to what An Taoiseach had to say today. We have always said consistently for the last 10 months of this pandemic that any decision to do with our primary education system has to be led by up-to-date public health advice. It's absolutely critical.
A new online support group is being piloted to help combat feelings of isolation and loneliness sparked by COVID-19 restrictions. The Service User and Supporters Council of St Patrick's Mental Health Services in Dublin will be the first to trial the scheme Here For You, which will launch on Monday.
As COVID-19 restrictions look set to extend well into 2021, a new service run both by and for former service users of St Patrick's Mental Health Services will try to alleviate the effect of lockdown on people with mental health difficulties. Here For You will launch this coming Monday. It's an online peer-to-peer support group led by volunteers where those with experience of mental health difficulties can discuss how they're experiencing these difficult and unprecedented times. It's hoped that by providing this support structure, it'll help to combat those feelings of isolation and loneliness that ongoing COVID-19 restrictions may bring.
So when we were thinking of that, I suppose we theorised that whilst it's necessary to remain physically distanced in order to protect one another, there was nothing really to stop us coming together as people with shared experiences online and to support one another in that way. And that's really where Here For You was born.
Mental health has perhaps never been more to the forefront of the national conversation than it has been since the COVID-19 pandemic began last March. With the country now in the midst of its third strict lockdown, there are ongoing concerns about what these needed restrictions may have on the country's mental health.
The more lockdowns we have, the greater the impact of those feelings. It's more difficult for people to stay optimistic. Now, with the rollout of the vaccine, of course, there's huge optimism, but it's really important that we recognise that all of these things are having a big impact on people's emotional well-being and mental health. Saying all that, people have more resilience than they think, and all of us have inner resilience. So part of dealing with this is trying to find what is inner resilience to us, and also seeking help if you need help, because many people feel they can't do that in this current climate when they can and they should.
The hope is that the pilot programme can be expanded nationwide and made available for anyone who feels they would benefit from the support service. Rob Hanrahan, Virgin Media News.
And if you've been affected by any of the issues raised in that report, you can contact the Samaritans in confidence on its helpline number. In other news, a teenage boy has appeared in court charged in connection with the attempted robbery and stabbing of a woman near Dublin's IFSC this week. The 14-year-old has been remanded to the Oberstown Detention Centre to appear again next week.
The 14-year-old boy appeared before Judge Brian Smith at a sitting of the Children's Court here at the Criminal Courts Complex today in connection with that knife attack on a 49-year-old woman near the IFSC on Wednesday night. His solicitor told the judge today that his mother and siblings were in court. Garda Mark Barry of Store Street Guard, the station, gave evidence of arrest, charge and caution. He told the judge that when 6 charges, 3 of them unrelated to this incident, were put to the boy in the early hours of this morning at Store Street Station, that he made no reply. He's accused of possessing a knife, he's accused of attempting to rob the woman, and he's also accused of assault causing the woman harm, all at the CHQ building near the IFSC on Wednesday night. His solicitor told the court that his family was anxious that he would receive a psychiatric evaluation, and that was directed by Judge Brian Smith today. The court heard that there was a bed available at the Oberstown Detention Centre and there would be no application for bail today. So he was remanded in detention to appear again on the 27th of January. In the meantime, the 49-year-old woman who was stabbed near the IFSC on Wednesday night remains in a critical condition in the Mater Hospital.
Coming up next on the news at 5:30. The Doctor Will See You Now. A new scheme allows for face-to-face consultations with COVID-positive patients. We'll bring you all the latest developments from the Department of Health on the COVID situation. And in sport, Rory McIlroy leads the way at the Abu Dhabi HSBC Championship.
Download the Just Eat app and get delivery like a G on Camille, Elephant and Castle and Eddie Rockets.
If somebody say Just Eat.
Are you ready for the adventure of a lifetime?
What?
Yes.
I'm so glad you're coming with us.
Whoa. Tell me where the Tell me where the
What a thrill.
Amazing Adventures, streaming on Now TV.
From those extra few minutes to that extra push, those extra few inches and those final touches.
Hi guys, we'll get started.
We're always considering our options. Next time your car insurance is up for renewal, it's worth considering your options here too. Consider the insurer that will provide savings on great value car insurance. Consider AIG.
2021. Out with the old, in with the new a bits. Whether that's a bit more self-care a bits, or trying a new hobby, whitewater rafting a bits. Even learning a new language a bits. Mandarin. Fingers crossed it'll be better than last year a bits. Have you had your Weetabix?
For reliable, efficient and affordable home heating appliances, trust Grant to heat your home. Think heating, think Grant. Visit grant.eu.
We all need to know the signs of COVID-19 and what to do if we feel sick. So if you have a cough, fever, breathing difficulties, or experience changes in your sense of taste or smell, it might mean you have COVID-19 and you could pass it on to others. If you have any symptoms, self-isolate to protect others and phone your GP for a free coronavirus consultation. If you need a COVID-19 test, that's free too. And if you don't, you'll feel better for having protected others. Because COVID-19 is still a problem. And we're all the answer.
At SuperValue, we believe in keeping our communities safe. So we'll continue doing all we can to ensure you get your shopping as safely as you can. From our easy online shopping service and priority shopping hours for the elderly and vulnerable, to sanitizer stations, contactless payment, and limiting numbers in store at any one time. We'll always do our best so we can get through this together. Because at SuperValue, we believe in our communities.
At Irish Life Health, our benefit plan gives you up to €250 back on a mix of benefits like sports club membership and fitness wearables. Search Irish Life Health.
Let's face it, humans are pretty limited animals. No fur, no claws, no wings. Yet we survived by learning one simple thing. The world won't adapt to us, so let's adapt ourselves to the world. The new Peugeot 3008, time to change.
Welcome back. Well, in news just reaching us this evening, we can go live now to the Department of Health, and our reporter Zara King has the latest COVID figures. Zara, what can you tell us?
Yes, good evening, Anne. So tonight we're reporting 77 further deaths from COVID-19 and 1,910 new confirmed cases. In terms of the situation in hospitals across the country, there are 1,893 COVID patients in hospital tonight, of which 217 are in the intensive care unit. So just looking at a breakdown of tonight's figures, Anne, and we can see of those 77 deaths, the people who died were aged between 43 and 98 years of age. And of those deaths, 76 of those happened this month, while one is from December. In terms of the 1,910 new confirmed cases, the geographical breakdown showing 710 in Dublin, 150 in Cork, 103 in Meath, 102 in Limerick, 86 in Louth, with the remaining 759 cases spread across all other counties. In his remarks this evening, the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Tony Houlihan, has said, "We know it is possible to have COVID-19 without displaying symptoms, so we all need to behave as though we are infectious and minimise our close contacts." And he says if someone suspects that they might be ill, I know these are basics and people will say they've heard them before, but to self-isolate and to contact your GP to arrange a test to come forward as quickly as possible, because we heard earlier in the week that people were delaying for a couple of days between developing symptoms and coming forward for testing. Dr. Houlihan reiterating that it is important to get tested as soon as you experience symptoms. Also tonight, Dr. Houlihan remarking on the fact that the case numbers have come down, and so like 1,910 cases is a big improvement when we look at last Saturday when cases were over 3,000. He says that through the solidarity shown by families and communities across the country in recent weeks, we are beginning to flatten the curve of COVID-19 infection. And he goes on to say that each individual effort can make a huge difference. So tonight, as I say, reporting 1,910 new confirmed cases and 77 further deaths from the virus.
Sarah, thank you for that. Well, COVID-positive patients with deteriorating health are being offered a face-to-face assessment by a GP instead of entering the busy hospital system in the Midwest. A community assessment unit has been reopened by the HSE as the region deals with the latest surge in cases.
Dressing head to toe in PPE allows GPs at this unit hold face-to-face consultations with COVID-positive patients.
There are patients who are getting symptomatically worse. So patients who are becoming more short of breath, patients who are having difficulty breathing, and that need to be assessed with a face-to-face consultation.
The doctors assess if an admission to the already under pressure hospital system is warranted.
UHL University Hospital Limerick is overwhelmed. We know the wards are very busy. We know the A&E is very, very busy. So only those patients who need to access those services should be referred at present.
The community assessment unit was reopened in response to the surge in COVID-19 cases in the Midwest region.
We can see an increase since
these types of hubs were opened earlier in March and April, they weren't as busy then, but definitely they are busy. The last week has been very busy. You can really see that what we're seeing in the numbers in terms of positive people, we're seeing bearing out in the amount of people who we have to assess here as well, yeah, definitely.
Spending hours at a time in the protective gear makes an impression.
You do get very warm in the gear gets very tight on you, but it's just necessary really just to protect yourself and to protect the patients.
The GPs and nurses here have been afforded additional protection through vaccination.
I've been fortunate enough to receive the vaccination because I'm working in the hub here and we're seeing primarily positive patients. Unfortunately, a large number of GPs in the Midwest region haven't received the vaccinations to date, and obviously that's very worrying for them and for their patients. So we really hope that that is rectified in the coming days.
Appointments at the unit by GP referral are helping to keep some COVID-19 patients out of one of the busiest hospitals in the country. Eric Clark, Virgin Media News.
Sports next. Here's Will.
Thanks, and the holders Arsenal have been knocked out of the FA Cup. A first half own goal from Gabriel gave Southampton a 1-0 win in their fourth round tie at St Mary's. It's their first ever FA Cup win over Arsenal. Southampton progress to the fifth round where they'll face Wolves. West Ham have beaten Doncaster Rovers 4-0 to progress. Goals from Pablo Fornals, Andrei Yarmolenko, Oladapo Afolayan and an own goal from Andy Butler gave David Moyes' side a comfortable victory, and they'll play the winners of Liverpool and Man United. And in the 5:30 kick-off, Man City are away to Cheltenham Town, and it is currently 0-0. Rory McIlroy will take a one-shot lead into the final round of the Abu Dhabi HSBC Championship tomorrow. He shot an impressive third round 67 to move top of the leaderboard, a shot clear of Tyrrell Hatton. This 73-yard pitch at the 10th for an eagle put him in the outright lead. 5 birdies in total on his scorecard for the day, as the four-time major winner looks to start 2021 with a win.
I thought I did well today. I obviously had that big stroke of luck on 10, the ball hitting the pin and going in. But apart from that, I played well. I drove it much better on the back nine, and I hit it much better on the back nine. So I was really encouraged about that. Yeah, I can't go into tomorrow thinking it's my turn. I want to make it my turn. I want to have I have to go out there and continue to hit the ball like I hit it on the back nine tonight. If I can do that and give myself plenty of chances, I'll have a really good chance.
Well, there was a shock winner in the feature race at Ascot. First Flow produced a strong finish to be the hot favourite Polito Log in the Clarence House Chase.
Down towards the last, First Flow still holding Politolog. They've got one fence to take, and First Flow still has the lead. It is 3 lengths down towards the last. First Flow, one final good leap may seal it, and he's clear from Politolog, who's being closed on by waiting patiently. But First Flow driven out towards the line. The sequence of victories will continue with the biggest one to date. David Bass and a first grade one for Kim Bailey since Master Oaks Gold Cup.
Conor McGregor will make his return to the octagon later on tonight. The Irish fighter takes on Dustin Poirier, about which headlines UFC 257. McGregor, who hasn't fought since last January, beat the American in their first fight in under 2 minutes back in September of 2014. Captain Jared Butler returns to the Connacht starting team for tomorrow's rearranged Pro 14 game against Ospreys in Galway. This evening, Munster